Hi! On the Woodpecker today, I'm making this exterior cedar table. I was asked if I could build a big patio table. I said yes. And here's what I've designed. It was accepted. Now I need to build it. The first thing I have to do is to remove the round corners. To do so, I just plane each side of all the 4x4s. And for all this project, Damien will be helping me. He's on vacation in Canada and wanted to work with me. When all the corners are removed, I can cut all the pieces for the sides of the base. I use a stop to make sure all the pieces will be the same size. Next, it's time to mark where I'll drill the mortises. So I clamp the sides in place, identify each joint, mark where the mortises will be, and drill them. I show Damien how to make them, and he takes over. After a quick dry fit, we can glue this. As usual, this is not too complicated. A little bit of glue inside the mortises, on the dominoes, and we put it all together. Next come the clamps, and we don't forget to check for squareness. After that, our first day is done. The next morning, we can sand what we've glued yesterday. Then we cut all the long pieces for the base. I mark where I'll drill the mortises and drill them. When it's done, it's time for another dry fit. Here's the result. This is coming along pretty nicely. But we're missing both angled pieces. I begin by cutting one with the 45-degree angle, put it in place, mark the next cut, and cut it. The only thing missing is the placement of the mortises, and we cut them. One thing I have to say is that it's faster when I have a helper in the shop with me. When it's done, we can glue this. It's fairly the same as before, except this time we only glue the angled pieces with the two stretchers. And to make sure everything will align later on, we put both ends in place without gluing them. But we still put clamps. It's a bit tricky because of the angle, but we manage anyway. While the glue is drying, we can start to work on the tabletop. The first thing to do is to remove some round corners. Again. Next, we cut the two long styles. First, I remove a tiny bit. Align both styles together and in one pass, cut both of them. Next, it's time for the 4 rails. And after all this, our last glue up is dry enough, so we can glue the whole base together. Being two to glue this goes way faster. And when everything is in place, we just need to add some clamps. We put this aside and go back to the tabletop. The first thing to do is, again, marking the mortises placements and drill them. And checking if this will be A1 later on. I know it's a very repetitive job. But since it's perfect, we need to cut some grooves on the rails for the top slats. When it's done, we do the slats. Each of them has a rabbet at its ends. One done, several more to do. But with Damien, who cuts the slats, and me, who cut the rabbits, in almost no time we have all of them. But each plank is a bit too wide. I need to remove a sliver. In the end, it's perfect. But since I've removed a sliver, we need to make another round over. And with a bit of fine-tuning, each slat fits in place. Now we're ready for the tabletop glue-up. I'm beginning to like having a helper in the shop. Even gluing things goes much faster and easier. The last thing to do is clamp this. And while the glue is drying, we can sand the base. Next, as strange as it sounds, I need to route a round over on all the corners of the base. Yes, the first thing we did was to remove the round overs. Now we have to put another one. I need to use a rasp to make the round overs in some corners. We also need to make the corners less sharp. The final shape is done with some rasps. Damien uses the coarse grit, and I finish with the finer one. Next, we need to work on the bottom of the tabletop. We begin by sanding. Then I make a round over on the sharp corners. I would have liked to use a router bit, but the bearing is too high for the space I have. So I use this round over tool to make the job. It works fine when the grain is straight, but when it's not, I have to use the rasp again. But for the exterior, I can use a palm router. We're almost done, but the long central planks are a bit too flexible. But I had planned for that in my plan. To fix this, I cut more cedar and route a rabbit at each end. Now we can screw this in place. I pre-drill and screw 4 screws. But I don't want metal screws. I remove them one by one and replace them with brass screws. I don't want to take any chances with such long brass screws, because they have a tendency to snap if they're screwed without any tap. That's the reason why I started screwing this with metal screws. I also screw 1 screw in the center of each long plank. This way I'm sure they won't move. And just like before, I use metal screws before replacing them with brass ones. For the small planks, I screw 1 small screw in the center at each end. Now we need to finish the base. We lay the base on the center of the tabletop and trace where we should remove some wood. Next, I cut on the lines. On both sides stretchers, I make an angle cut. the rest of the wood is removed with the router. It was a bit difficult to see the cut line, so I add a stop. This is much easier. So when I do the next side, I add 2 stops right from the bat. The center is much simpler. We're almost done. So after putting the base in place, this is what it should look like. Perfect. But we still need to be able to screw the base to the top. For that, I drill 8 straight holes in the base, but not too deep, just enough to mark the top. And with these small marks, I'm now able to align a bigger drill bit to drill the holes for the inserts. I do this 8 times and we're set. We can try this. And as expected, everything fits. We can finish the tabletop. And with this last sanding, the table is completely done. No, I'm not putting any finish on it. Its owner will take care of that. Yes, I know, the base is super heavy duty, but it's part of its charm. I won't see the base raking soon, I can guarantee it. Speaking for myself, I love how the top looks. But it might just be me. This is how Damien and I made this nice cedar table. I hope you liked it, and see you soon in the next episode of the Woodpecker.